Hi everyone, welcome to the second part of our webinar on enhancing your professional online presence. Whether you're in the legal or compliance industries or in any other profession, we have a great discussion on what steps you need to implement to take your professional online presence to new levels. Make sure you follow our LinkedIn or Facebook company page and subscribe to this channel. If you're on YouTube, remember to click on the alert notification. The next one is to ask the audience about the use of social media. So I'm just going to publish it now. So if you are not using social media to promote your professional brand, why not? So if members of the audience could vote. So we'll give that a couple of minutes. So whilst we've got that running in the background, I'll go on to the next question about, and I suppose maybe it's been covered by both of you in terms of what inspired you to become active on social media platforms. But the more pressing question is, was there a particular aha moment, like one big significant event, which really inspired you to really go all out on social media to present your professional brand? Or was there a series of smaller moments which culminated in you starting with small steps and then building it up as you went along?
Yeah, I think I can just talk about maybe quickly about my experience, because for me, I don't think there's this match. Well, probably like as I mentioned before, it was the time when I passed my bar exam and I make that first post that generates a lot of feedbacks and comments from people from all parts of the world. I would say that's probably the triggering point for sure. But the fact that I would say at the time I had this roommate and he is an entrepreneur, and he always told me like, oh Gordon, you have experiences and you have a good background, why don't you try to keep posting every day and see what people think about it? And I was like, okay, he's an entrepreneur and he probably knows better about how to market yourself or develop your brand. And I just keep doing it for a month. And then for the next month, I remember I literally make a post every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. So that literally every day for 30 days. Indeed, even the connections, I think probably increased from 2,000 to 8,000 or 9,000 connections on LinkedIn within that particular month. Because those topics are also the topics that I really want to make as well. They were literally the thoughts I have when I had doubt in my legal career, so that all those posts, just suddenly many people resonate with those feelings and also those experiences. So I would say it's the communicative efforts of making a post every single day for that particular month also helps me kind of start this whole thing about posting consistency. Because for me, when I look back to my earlier academic life, I'm always consistent in like studying hard, doing well in exams, and I did well in exam at the end. I'm consistent in pursuing the goals of getting a training contract. I did get it at the end. So if I'm consistent in something, so far I have been doing well in those particular fields. So what if I'm consistent on LinkedIn? Maybe I will also do well. That was just my mindset, and probably it proves that there is some truth to that. So I'm glad that I did it. And probably it's also a combination of cumulative efforts, and also the inspiration I have after my bar examination.
Good. And Lara?
For me, as I mentioned, I'm all about relationships and connecting with people and also introducing people. So I found LinkedIn was just a fantastic way of meeting new people, also finding people on there who I'd met in person. So it became my digital Rolodex, as it were, because it comes with their photo and profile. And so I just really enjoy using it. So for me, it's about the user experience. I love being on it every day, making new connections, having conversations with people, commenting on things. I think, it goes to my nature of being someone who's quite nosy about other human beings. So I love seeing what's going on. And I think also it helps to be opinionated. If someone says something, I tend to not post if I disagree with someone, but where I think someone's got a great post, you know, I can't help myself, but I'll post immediately a comment to say, wow, you know, this is great, totally agree with you, or something like that. So it's just that ability to be able to interact with other people. So I love that. But there was a scary moment on it where I was in a lift in my building, and this woman turns around, she goes, "Oh, you're Lara, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yes." She goes, "I've seen you on Instagram. I follow you on Instagram. I'm a big fan on Instagram." And I was like, "Ooh, okay, thanks." But that was,
this was in your building?
yeah, in my office building.
Oh.
I'm that recognizable. That was a little bit scary.
It wasn't your managing partner, was it?
No. Definitely a total stranger.
Wow. Okay. Well, fortunately for me, I haven't had that sort of experience, and well, we're on to the next topic. We'll go back onto the results of the poll. So I'm going to share the results. And so the question was, if you're not using social media to promote your professional brand, why not? And so a lot of people with saying that there's a lack of confidence or lack of experience. Some, as we'd highlighted before, employment restrictions. But the biggest leader of all is we don't know what to write. So hopefully what Gordon had mentioned before might inspire you to come up with some ideas. Lara, do you have any other thoughts about that in terms of what, how do you develop the seeds of an idea of a post?
I generally take inspiration in the morning. I go for a walk in nature, and I listen to podcasts, and I'll look through, you know, the news, and see what sparks. Usually I'll just get a flash of inspiration. It's usually something I want to share about, you know, motivating people, or if they're stuck, or just something relevant that's going on, especially related to wellness and COVID, because of how we are at the moment, but also because of the emphasis on you know, authenticity and people wanting real stories. At the end of the day, we are all still, you know, cave people who love stories and interacting with other human beings. So the more human that you can be on a digital platform, the better, I think. So yeah, that's it really.
And I think a lot of people tend to overcomplicate the situation, in the sense that, you know, if you're a commercial litigation lawyer in a law firm, you'll be thinking, well, how many legal matters can I post about? And I think it's more about actually taking a step back, and rather than saying, well, I need to post about legal technical matters, that will possibly demonstrate your technical ability, but really you can do that on the job, you know, when you're actually working on files and matters. But more social media, really the purpose is more about getting to know you as a person. So I think if people can think of it in that respect, and talk about what interests them or they're passionate about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about their first job, their main job. You know, as Lara has pointed out, you know, you have a side business which you promote on Instagram, although you don't really promote it on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn seems to be more of the platform for your coaching business. But for other people, you know, I find that a lot of people who are successful in posting tend to talk about their personal experiences, either in their careers or dealing with moments of hardship, or, you know, difficult moments in their lives. And that's something that Gordon very eloquently posts about as well. So I think if people, you know, by all means, you know, you may want to post about a topic in your specialized area of law or industry, but you don't have to post about that all the time. You know, I think if you mix it up and share other content on other topics as well, that sort of gives a bit of variety for you to write about. So we've got, we'll go on to the next slide. Is well, we've covered this question partly. I mean, does anybody else have any other comments about how having a social media presence benefit you?
In outreach, you're able to connect with people directly. And I think that that's very powerful because in a lot of cases, they'll have a gatekeeper, so a PA who's monitoring email, etc. Also, you've got spam and all sorts of things going on email. So LinkedIn enables you to, reach out to someone directly, asking to connect with them. And then if they do connect, you can then message each other directly. So it means that you can have really good, real conversations with people who are, pretty high up, C-suite people, in a way that you probably wouldn't on email. So, and it's a lot more casual, it's very direct, and it's just very real. And I think that sort of access is really amazing. I have been able to source speakers for events, and interviews and media contacts and all sorts of really interesting people through LinkedIn.
Yeah, for me, I just quickly want to add that because I always want to explore different legal career paths and in different legal jurisdictions. For example, I'm also interested in the US legal market, say. So ever since I started posting on LinkedIn, I connect with a lot of American lawyers as well. So I felt like even if one day I want to move there or to work or gain experiences in New York, say, I will be able to connect with like people or meet up with people in New York. I think that's also helps with my legal career in the future as well, because when you have more connections and more people you can reach out to or get advice, it's always good to do so. And other than that, I would say I was also lucky, for example, when I did my LPC and things, some other platforms who are producing resources for students, they may give me some free items of those books for study so that I can help them kind of advertise their products for free in return for me also having those valuable resources for my personal study as well, which is a good thing. And I often recommend them after I find them useful anyway. So it's still doing a good thing for even students who want to find some genuinely useful resources as well.
Great. And thank you for that. Okay, so what we're going on to is I'm a little bit conscious that we don't have a huge amount of time left, but this is actually quite some, we've prepared some slides for the audience in terms of giving some tips on creating a solid social media presence. So there are a couple of things in relation to LinkedIn. First and foremost, add a photo. I think with everyone having a smartphone with huge megapixels on their phone, there's really no excuse not to have a good photo of yourself. It creates, according to LinkedIn, 9 times more connection requests. It creates 21 times more profile views and increases your chances of getting messages by more than 36 times. And having a complete profile. So here we have an example of Lara's. So she's gone through each of her organizations and given a short summary of the work that she carried out in each of these organizations. And then on to the next one, which is Gordon's, which is quite similar in flavor. Obviously, not as much content as Lara, but you can see even with the short time that Gordon has been on LinkedIn and studying and now working towards a legal career, you've got some really great content on here as well. And then getting recommendations. So both Gordon and Lara have great recommendations here, and it's so easy to do. This is one of the key functions that you can use, with your clients or with your colleagues, or anybody that who would be willing to give you a recommendation. And having a few of those adds more quality to your profile itself. And this is the most important part, actually, in terms of maintaining and building your presence online, is telling a good story on these posts or with articles. But I think more and more people are focusing more on their posts. And this is my observation, Gordon, that, a lot of your experiences that you post about is in relation to your applying for your training contract at law firms and giving tips to improve your chances of securing such a contract. And your YouTube videos include practical tips on studying, on vacation scheme applications and training contract applications, as well as job interviews. And also some insights as to different practice areas of within law firms. I think a lot of people find your posts are very creative and inspiring, and particularly among law students, there are so many law students who are applying for jobs and vacation scheme placements that they really don't know where to look, and so you are that beacon of light. So on to Lara's. So Lara's, I think you've gone through different stages, right? You've your latest one being your transition from being a senior business developer within an international law firm to executive coach to lawyers and acting as a mentor to many of them. In addition, you're sharing your life journey and experiences and how that differs from your previous careers. And also, I've noticed from your posts, you post a mix of personal experiences as a third culture kid, as a working mother, as an entrepreneur, and as a coach. And I think that sort of variety, keeps up the levels of engagement that you have with your audience. And also your increasing use of podcasts. And I think you're going to be a pioneer in this region, in this area, because podcasts isn't as widely used compared with, say, in Europe or in North America. But that may well change. So, we've pulled off this example, and this is for the experienced lawyers amongst you in the audience. We're not geared just towards aspiring lawyers and junior lawyers. But Dan Needle, I've connected for maybe about a year or so. He's a tax partner at Clifford Chance in London. And, his posts have the typical dry English humor in them, as you can see from these posts. He's a tax lawyer. He does talk about tax, but he does it in a very funny, in an amusing way. For example, the picture on the left, what does it take to be a tax lawyer? Two things, a cup of espresso and a tax book. For this, I don't know whether if either Lara or Gordon are connected with him or follow him. This is a prime example of where you don't necessarily have to talk about your area of specialization. Several of these are actually all about observations about work or people he's in contact with. Showing how you can have a life outside of work. Now, I've been connected with Gary. He's an in-house counsel in Hong Kong, and he's got an amazing garden of a vegetable patch outside his village house. And for me, I find that very fascinating for some reason. And it really just it shows the human side of him. And to the right, he's also a martial artist as well. So, there's now the borders or the boundaries of what you can post, I think, are becoming increasingly blurred with people, showing the human side of themselves. And then now we go on go to these two experienced professionals who talk about their experiences. David I believe, is a retired HR professional in Southeast Asia. I think it's Malaysia. Asim is a former investment banker in London who then moved to Malaysia with his family to set up a tech startup. And both of those have huge levels of engagement. And they talk about their experiences of their work. And similar, I post about similar things about my time as a lawyer, both from a candidate perspective and also just from general work-life experiences. So this is the thing that I would like to discuss with both Lara and Gordon. And I've asked before the webinar for them to pick 3 of these bullet points about commonalities in terms of what you should do as a somebody who's trying to set out or enhance their social media presence. So, Lara, would you like to start off?
So for me, my number one do is add value. So, think about your audience, think about actually your ideal person that you're trying to reach. Who are you trying to help? And then in your posts, how can you help them? You can either show a story, an example of where you've done something and you've learned something and you want to share it with them, or perhaps you can be generous in other ways. But adding value in terms of maybe sharing an article that you see is relevant and interesting. So that adds value, knowledge along the way, tips and tricks on things, hacks. People love that stuff. It just, it means that they see things, that you're offering that is adding value to their lives. So for me, that's definitely my number one.
Okay. Gordon, what would your number one bullet point be here?
Honestly, I also wanted to say add value, because it's probably
And you can say add value.
Yeah, yeah, that would be good. But I would say it's also a combination between adding value and being relatable as well, I would say, because at least for my personal style, I would say I would love to provide resources for aspiring lawyers, because they're clearly my audience. And I usually give them resources and which will be helpful for their academic journey or training contract applications. At the same time, so I usually shared my personal struggles, which happened not long ago. So they were still very, very clear in my mind, the kind of feelings people would feel, especially nowadays. I also talk to aspiring lawyers from time to time on Zoom or like LinkedIn. So I pretty much really understand their concerns or their struggles. So I think being relatable is also important, plus adding value, so that they will see that not only you understand what they are going through at the moment, but you're also trying to help, and they actually can benefit from them and potentially achieve their goal as well. And just one extra point I want to mention is that how to add value is also important. For me, I love writing, I love reading. So the kind of content I make are usually in writing, like a passage. But for some people, they love making videos or using podcasts like Laura, or there's just so many means for you to stand out. Just pick a medium that works the best for you. I think that's important, even when you want to add value, to pick something that is your niche or your strength.
Yeah. I think I want to add, in terms of the points that you've both raised, is I think to add to that is one of the points here is posting in your native language, because I think, having spoken with a lot of lawyers here, English, although, a lot of lawyers say that they're bilingual or trilingual, you're never going to be as comfortable as your native language. And I think that there's this sort of limiting belief or this self-pressure amongst lawyers in Hong Kong that I sense, that they might think, well, maybe the lack of confidence might be because they don't want to post in English, because they might make a mistake grammatically, or they might make a point which may not be understood or misunderstood. And whereas if you post in Chinese, then there's going to be no confusion there. And the good thing about LinkedIn is that there's also a translation button as well. So if you don't read Chinese, you can just click translate, and you can read the post in your own native language. And I've actually seen more and more posters, even some politicians I've seen on LinkedIn who have posted in Chinese, and the translation is just almost flawless. It's really, really good. And so all I can do is urge those who are feeling the lack of confidence, because one of their main reasons is not wanting to post in English, try it out in Chinese and see what it's like. I think you may break yourself free from that particular barrier. So no, thank you for that. And then the next one we're going to on to is don't. the list of don'ts, things that you should try to avoid at least frequently. So are there any particular points here which jump out at you?
Yeah, definitely the hard sell. You don't want to be salesy. This is not the place for it. And it's so off-putting when someone connects with you and they immediately message you with a sell, like they don't even bother to get to know you or pretend to be friends. They just, like, I got one today which is, oh, you're a podcaster, let me help you with your podcast, I'm in Bangladesh, let me do your podcast. And it's like, no, thank you. Yeah. So please do not do hard sell.
Yeah, I think I need to agree with Laura again regarding hard sell, because I think the main purpose of using like social media platforms like LinkedIn is to show your personality, so that when people actually like you as a person, they will start paying attention to your products, to your other platforms. Then that will actually achieve the purpose of selling your things. I think you should probably try to make yourself more, like more human on the social media platform, so that people actually like you or respect you as a person, and all the other things will come along after you establish that brand. I think that's probably a better strategy.
I suppose the only exception might be if you produced or published your own book and and then you're saying, here's my new book, come and buy it.
Yeah, facts. I think, you can always talk to facts, and that's okay. If you have written a book and you're genuinely proud of it, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey folks, delighted to announce the publication of my new book. This has taken me 4 years to write, and share the struggles involved in writing it, etc., and put some positivity out there, such as, if I can do it, you can do it, etc. It's just important how you use your tone, so not blowing your own trumpet, but sharing good news, where you've genuinely achieved something, especially say, Gordon with achieving the New York bar, things like that, where you've really put your heart and soul into something, and you've achieved a qualification, or you've won an award or something like that. I think you can definitely celebrate that on LinkedIn. It just depends how you do it. And certainly if you're in a law firm context, it's better to get your business development people to post rather than yourself, and then you can like it and say, oh, so delighted to win this, thank you so much for giving me this amazing award. But do try and come across as humble and down to earth.
Yeah. Are there any other things that you try to avoid when you're posting, other than the hard sell, or anything that may be outside of this list?
Yeah, I mean, politics to some degree, although sometimes things like Brexit, I honestly couldn't help myself on that topic. I did end up commenting on that, but otherwise, generally, I'm very careful about what I post about. I'm definitely never negative. I really don't agree with using it as a negative platform. All we want is the positive side of things. So I'm always very positive in my posts.
Okay. Now, right, before we go on to the next session, I'm just going to do the final poll to the audience. And so we're going to go on to poll number 3. And that question is, how likely are you to create an online social media presence or improve your current one in the near future hopefully as a result of today's webinar? So get clicking, and we will go on to the final question. The other thing I'd like to point out is we don't have any questions raised by the audience. So I'm hoping that the discussion that we've had so far, both in terms of Lara and Gordon's story, and also the tips that we've given you over these last 6 or 7 slides, have inspired you to ask a few more questions which you'd like to raised with the panel. So, we've got the next 5 or 10 minutes whilst we're discussing our final question about, whether you have any other questions. So please fire away. And so we've got a few questions that we can ask Lara and Gordon. So looking to the future, what does social media for professionals look like?
I actually think it's going to be a lot more based on video. LinkedIn itself is moving towards that. I think the move towards LinkedIn stories suggests that it likes that format that Instagram and Facebook have. So I also noticed that the algorithm tends to push video. So if you do put a video, I think this is why Gordon has really, got this exponential growth that he has, and that's a lot to do with his video content that he posts. Most people are very, very interested in seeing other human beings, and being able to share your content in a live format as well. So there'll be a lot more, I think there'll be a lot more in LinkedIn Live and webinar through the platform. Already they're using webinar there. And so it's going to be a mix of video. I wouldn't be surprised if LinkedIn starts to have its own podcast channel. So the podcasts will be hosted on LinkedIn as well. You'll have a sort of little YouTube section of LinkedIn as well. So I think that's where it's going to go. People are just so keen on video. It's so much more real. You get to see people in action, hear their voice, hear their tone, see them. I myself have not posted any videos of myself on LinkedIn yet, but I think that's going to be my project for 2021.
Yeah. We haven't even entered 2021, so you've got a long time to consider a video for that period. And Gordon, do you have anything to add to that question or to the answer of Lara's?
Yeah, actually, I have maybe a crazy thought on that, because I feel like maybe one day law firms can even use like a mini series, video TV series. For example, I just always have ideas like, why can't they, because I watch a lot of YouTube videos in general. For example, they're always video like a host talking to a celebrity while eating hot chicken wings together. Why can't, I don't know, a law student sitting with a partner eating hot chicken wings, talking about interviews, talking about law firms? I just feel like those kind of topics can make lawyers a more entertaining profession and make us more alive or human. And also it adds a lot of interesting things, to the whole legal profession. That's just my personal thought. I feel like we can actually, just go beyond our imagination and do something crazy in the future on social media platforms.
In that respect, have you seen the, I think it's called Carpool Lawyer or Barrister?
Yeah, I saw that. That's interesting. I think something like that can also promote diversity as well, like doing a different hobby or having hot pot together, I don't know, with some law firm partners in London. Like it's just interesting, and also show that how your firm really cares about different kinds of people, different kinds of culture. It also helps you promote your brand as well. That's just what I envisage, although I'm not even sure when this kind of thing could happen, but it's always good to be hopeful and positive.
Yes, great. Okay, no, thank you both. And we'll end the poll here, and I will share the results of this last poll, which is, how likely are you to create an online social media presence or improve your current one in the near future? So, so we've got very likely well ahead at 62%. So that's great to hear that, some of the things that we've discussed today have inspired a number of people in our audience to go ahead and try to launch or improve their existing social media presence. So we've got, I will take a look at some of the questions that have been raised. From one of the questions, I'm old-fashioned. How do I get over my shyness of posting to the public, opening personal stories to strangers?
I think it's one of those things when you start out, that first post is a big deal, you know, putting yourself out of your comfort zone. However, if you get into the habit of it, it becomes second nature. And the more reactions you get and the more people are empathizing with you and saying, yes, absolutely, I feel the same. And, oh, you know, that was such a great post. And you begin to feel like, wow, this is great. You know, people are liking my posts. I should do more of it. So you will grow in confidence gradually, but, you know, take baby steps and have a look at, you know, other people's posts and what kind of thing is likely to be a good first step, and then just see how you go. But don't put pressure on yourself. Be kind to yourself, and just don't take it too seriously, you know. Yeah, don't be shy.
Yeah. And Gordon, do you have any other tips to
Yeah.
add?
Honestly, for me, I always feel like just think it as if you can at least kind of help or inspire one person who read your post, then I think that's enough. And because even though not a lot of people may necessarily read your things when the first time you post it, but if you can help at least one person, that's enough of reason for you to keep posting or make that particular post. You never know, maybe you change that particular the life or even the dates of one person by just posting that and your genuine thoughts about that. I think it's also what Laura said, practice makes perfect. And the first step kind of determines whether you're going to keep doing that. So just start today, just post it, just press the post button and then forget about it.
And that brings us on to the competition that I mentioned at the start of this webinar. And this is actually in relation to that, in order to help members of the audience to overcome their shyness of posting in public. So I've got this, I just devised this competition today. We've actually got two prizes. And the competition is that you've got 7 days. So from now until next Monday, you can post on LinkedIn as many times as you want. You have to hashtag SAL, which is Star Anise Legal. So if you hashtag SAL at the end of the post, and then we can then do the search on Tuesday morning next week. And the post with the most number of likes and engagement will win one of two prizes. So there'll be two people who will be winning a prize. So the first one is this novel, a thriller based in Hong Kong, which is written by a Hong Kong qualified and English qualified lawyer, who is Peter Gregoire. He is an insurance lawyer by background and worked his way through international firms and insurance companies. And he is the current general counsel of the Insurance Authority. So that's a pretty high profile figure. Now, obviously he wrote this before he was appointed as the GC of the Insurance Authority. And this is actually a signed book by Peter, as you can see here. So anywhere in the world, I encourage you, you can post as many times as you want, or you can just post once and see what it's like. So post away between now and next Monday, please. The other prize is actually a little bit of some memorabilia from Star Anise. So you have a Star Anise little notepad and also a block of Post-its as well, which is quite heavy. So the person with the most amounts of likes, they can choose one of these two, and the person with the second most number of likes will get the other prize. So hopefully that's a good enough spur for many of you to get cracking with your posts on LinkedIn. Another question here is, what is your thought process of creating posts that add value to your connections? What is your thought process of creating posts that add value to your connections?
I think for me, I would say you just need to know what kind of values you can bring to the table first. It could be based on your experiences. For me, I don't have that many practicing experiences. So of course my topics will kind of, centered upon like law school, New York bar, training contract applications, journeys of a law student. So from that particular perspective. So after I identify the main theme, then I would just get my inspiration from podcasts, because I love listening to podcasts as well. Sometimes about, different kinds of like resilience or like stories of others. I usually relate to others' stories or their quotes pretty often, so that when I hear something that kind of trigger my thoughts, I would just make a particular topic on that and figure out what kind of experience I had in the past also related to that particular topic. For example, topics like don't give up, topics like resilience, topics like open to opportunities. I can always draw my previous experience and link that to that particular big topic so that I can make a post out of it. That's just my personal approach. And I think, yeah, definitely there are many ways of doing that.
Yeah, same. I mean, like Gordon, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I'm also on LinkedIn as well. I see topics that are trending. I see subjects that are interesting, and I just get inspiration daily from various random things. It might be a book I'm reading, something I see on the news, just a thought, random thought that comes into my head that I think, oh yes, that's a topic I could post about. And I'm not so disciplined about sticking to 9 a.m. I find that whenever I have a thought and I fancy posting something, I just go ahead and do it. I am really not that strategic in my posting hours, because I believe that my moment of inspiration, if it is there, I will just go ahead and write something very quickly and then post it then. And then just see what happens.
I actually find that in terms of conceptualizing the idea, the seeds of a post, actually takes, for me, it takes a long while. Whereas the actual creating the post itself can be like within 5 to 10 minutes. You can just thrash out a quick post. But it's trying to think of something that is both thought-provoking and can also encourage engagement as well. And it may touch upon your area of your industry or your profession, but at the same time meld in something that's relatable to you as a person. And quite often, as you mentioned about going off for a walk, whereas I tend to, if I'm sitting on public transportation going into work, that's my time to be thinking about the ideas of something, or as you say, reading something from newspapers and articles, or listening to podcasts as well. Another question has been thrown to us is, as a lawyer, why do you think it's important to raise your social branding?
There's a lot of reasons, but personal branding is very, very important in this day and age, where it's your firm, but you also as a person. And the thing is that law used to be a job for life, and people used to be a trainee with a firm and then go all the way through to partner. But these days the reality is that most lawyers do tend to move on, and therefore it's quite important to have a personal brand, so that you have clients of your own, that you are already established as a thought leader, as someone with a lot of connections, and that you've got personality, and you will therefore be able to be more visible to recruitment consultants, to other firms who are looking for lawyers in your particular area. So your expertise and being out there is quite important, and certainly for someone of Gordon's generation, given that his whole generation are very media savvy, all of them will start to make sure they have very good traction on LinkedIn in terms of connections, exposure, and getting articles out there, good posts which show humanity, humility, authenticity, and value. So, serve people that you think will be your clients, show that you're a nice person to work with. These things are important. You don't want to be just any old lawyer. You want to be you. And so think about your brand and do make an effort with it.
Yeah, and for me, I think I just have one point want to make is that in the future, I always feel like those lawyers who are really, really experienced in the law or the technical aspect of the law, they may not necessarily be considered better compared to someone who is not excellent in the law, but they're good with social media. Because nowadays it's also kind of tricky because of social media. They tend to trust people who always, for example, on these platforms, and they have built a reputation. People may more likely trust those people or think that they're competent. At the same time, so what the point I want to trying to articulate is the fact that if you're already very good with your technical knowledge or the area of law you're practicing, and then you couple it with social media platforms, you'll be amazing in the future. That's just what I really believe. And I think those who can take advantage of the social media platform, they can truly build a reputation even within a firm or within his personal capacity. So I think it's just a good thing to do. And also with technology and the ever-changing nature of legal professional and LinkedIn, I think it's just, you need to keep improving yourself and keep being innovative in your career path in order to stand out. I think that's just the way it is. And when as lawyers especially, we tend not to change because we are risk averse. I think like most lawyers I know or people I know in the legal industry. But if you can be one of those few people who actually make changes consistently, so that I personally I really respect like Chris and Laura, because you guys are not in the generation I'm currently in, but you guys still adapt yourself to these changed circumstances. That's what makes a legal professional great in the future. I think that's the important quality to any professional or people in this entire world where we're living in this crazy journey of change, keep having different changes and, in the society. So that's probably what I think.
Yeah. And also, I think just to add to that, I mean, with social media, you're able to, particularly as a junior lawyer or even as a trainee, you get your face out there in front of these C-suite executives of these senior managers within organizations. And if you're connected with them on social media and you post interesting things about your life and your career, people are going to warm to you. So they're more likely to say, I saw your post the other day. Whereas if you, give you some good feedback about that. Whereas if you had no social media presence and you walk by them in the corridor or in a business, you're there in the business meeting with your partner and with that person, they won't even give you two looks during that meeting because they don't know who you are. Whereas if they have seen you on social media and you post up really interesting posts, they're more likely to strike up a conversation with you, and it just makes conversations flow so much more easily as a result of that. I've also had that experience as well. I've got partners and HR managers who mention about the posts that I post up, and it's actually been a very good icebreaker for people I've not met in person. So, if you see it that way, it's actually an enabler for you to connect or speak with people whom you might otherwise not be able to. I think that would actually be a really good motivator for many people out there.